The first digital media project that we did with Mick was our filmmaking project, where we were split into smaller groups of 3 and 4 to make a video on a loose concept of home. The one that myself, Katrina and Rebecca worked on was rituals and spirituality within the home. So our idea came from the stark contrast that we noticed between the two girls living in rural environments, whereas my home is very urban. And there was things that they protected their homes with because there's farmland such as barbed wire or electric wire, but then they would have leave their back door unlocked and open for neighbours to come in. And part of my house's house insurance, one of the clauses in it is that we need a double lock on the door, and we also need a key holder that has a passcode on it, because I live in a housing estate that gets some rough foot traffic. So there was a lot of differences between what we protect our homes with, and also stark differences in the spirituality, as Rebecca would come from a religious family who have Sacred Heart lamps and holy water and St. Bridget's cross, whereas my family don't practice religion, so we have none of that in our house. So the rituals that were a common ground were things like that featured light, because light kept coming up, and fire, things like setting the fire and cleaning out the fire, clicking the kettle, turning on and off and checking that you've turned it off with the immersion. There was loads of things that we kept coming up with that were common across all Irish homes, whether rural or urban, whether religious or not. So we made a quick video narrated by Rebecca and I, as Katrina was unavailable on the day, about the rituals which involve light and fire in the contemporary Irish home.
Fires, the lighting of, the burning of, and the extinguishing of have always had a place in Irish history and tradition, and that of around the world. The Celtic year was divided into two halves, the dark and the light. Samhain was the beginning of the dark half, with its counterpart Bealtaine beginning the light half. Between these two doors or portals fell Imbolc on February 1st and Lunasa on August 1st, quartering the Celtic year. These quarters were again divided by the solstices and equinoxes, which were known as the 4 albums. The 4 fire festivals marked the turning of the seasons. In ancient times, all of the fires of Ireland were extinguished and relighted from the one great fire kindled by the king's chief druid on the hill of Tlachta. Members of each family would light torches to carry back and rekindle their own hearth fires, which were then kept burning the rest of the year. Fires were also used as a means of protection. In some Celtic traditions, young men would run the boundaries of their farms after sunset with blazing torches to protect the family from the fairies and wicked forces that were free to walk the land at night. On the eve of Bealtaine, the Celts built 2 large fires, created from the 9 sacred woods, in honour of summer. The tribal herds were ritually driven between them so as to purify and protect them in the upcoming year. Fires provided illumination through the ages, and provided us with protection through its heat and its light. Light itself is linked with many Irish beliefs, traditions and rituals associated with protection, security and safety of our family and our homes, be these ancient or contemporary. These lamps, lights, candles and religious paraphernalia have endured the diminishing of devout Catholicism in modern-day Ireland, becoming more ornamental than functional. Fire and light have remained as key features in many of the customs, rituals and traditions in our homes, be this the indicator light of the kettle, the gas hob that boils the water, lighting a candle in thought and prayer for others, the light of the immersion, or the ritual and routine of setting, lighting and enjoying the fire.
The footage was gathered by Rebecca, Katrina and I just by using our phones, and we sourced some imagery online just with Google Images. And this was put together using Windows Movie Maker, where we played with the different speeds of playing the videos and the time lapse for the fire lighting and fire setting and fire cleaning, as I had a lot of footage of this because it was a cold weekend in my own house. So the fire was set and lit and cleaned 4 times over the course of me being home that weekend. And we also played around with some downloaded sounds from YouTube, from videos on YouTube, but we decided to narrate ourselves. The next project that we did, Mick let us dwell on it over the weekend after we had finished up with our filmmaking, asking us to think about things which irritated us and things that we've often maybe thought about a fix or a workaround because they bugged us that much. Because his argument was, which I totally agree with, is that creative people are often overlooked when it comes to these things. And we do come up with these wacky ideas of ways around these frustrating things. So over the course of the weekend, it was really cold, and I had come up with things such as nose tissue disposing woolly gloves, and I was at a tattoo convention and noticed the amount of guys with man buns. But again, as it was cold, they were very preoccupied with fixing their hair after taking off their woolly hats. So thinking like a glass dome, almost bauble, on the top of their hats that protected their man bun. And again, in my student accommodation, I was so cold, trying to watch my laptop in bed. It was almost too cold to keep my head out from under the duvet, but it was too warm and stuffy if I put my head under the duvet. So these were all things that went through my head as pet peeves and first world problems that I'd love to find a workaround for. But I ended up deciding on something to do with a hot beverage because I'm constantly drinking a herbal tea, a cup of tea, or a cup of coffee. And if I'm not drinking one, I'm thinking about drinking one, or thinking about making one, or thinking about my next one, and always complain that they don't stay warm for long enough, or they're not made to the right temperature when you order them in a Starbucks. So on this basis, fused with the tacky, cringe-worthy JML style of advertising, where they make out these issues to be almost life-threatening, and their little gadgets and toys and all the rest of it will save you from these problems, I created a series of posters for my brew buddy, and I also put a little video together in their style and a testimonial done by me as the happy client. So I will just go through these now. My idea here was to emphasize the descriptive language to make this out to be the worst problem ever, when there's people genuinely with so much more worse off than you out there. And again, copying the JML style. So if I was to do a voiceover for these posters, it would go a little something like, do you find yourself constantly let down by your supposedly comforting cup of joe? Tired of leaving your hot drink down and devastatingly allowing it to go cold? Tired of ordering an extra hot beverage only to be severely disappointed at a measly 62 degrees Celsius? Are you sick of high electricity bills from a reboiling kettle over and over again just for a hot drop? Or using the microwave to get your cuppa to the perfect temperature? Then this is the product for you. And so on. All of these images were made using Photoshop and just some stolen imagery from the internet, which I downloaded, cut around, and then added all into the one image. And then I also used my own coffee cup, portable coffee cup that I bring into college, to create my own for the purpose of the video. This was preceded by a testimonial from the customer, as JML also does, where I cringeworthily compared my brew buddy to a real friendship. The brew buddy is literally the best thing that has ever happened to me. It has changed my life forever. I'm no longer left feeling disappointed, underwhelmed, and betrayed by an imperfect, cool cuppa. Since purchasing my brew buddy, I feel as if I now have at least one thing in my life I can rely on. Who needs real buddies when you can always depend on the perfect 78 degrees brew? For the next stage of the project, we were put into pairs this time, so smaller groups again, and told to think about traditional Irish holidays and the customs associated with them. So on the short brief that was typed up, there was examples given such as Valentine's Day or Christmas Day or Halloween. And I was paired with Katrina, and we were told that our criteria for the video, the stop motion animation that we were making, that it had to include an element of drawing, and this was in comparison to some other groups had to ensure that they used paper or 3D. So Katrina and I both love drawing, so this suited us perfectly. And after some brainstorming, we realised that we were both quite interested in St. Bridget's Day. So we decided to focus on that holiday and looked up the history of it, maybe some unknown facts about St. Bridget herself, customs associated with the holiday other than the Bridget's Cross and things like that. But I was reminded of a video that I looked at this St. Bridget's Day past of the actual making of a cross, but it went from the beginning of gathering the rushes. And where Katrina is from, she had access to rushes. So we both decided that we thought a tutorial, a hand-drawn tutorial of how to put the St. Bridget's Cross together would be really interesting. So we messed around with ideas of using the whiteboard to draw the cross and drawing hands on paper. So there's a mixture of paper drawings and whiteboard drawings. And we ended up deciding drawing individual, it was 58 in total, drawings of the different stages of making the cross and photographing these individually using a stop motion animation app for iPhone. And we also added in a sound of a ticking clock just to show that it's an ancient tradition and the passing of time and all things relevant with that. And it's a time-consuming project, getting the drawings ready. But actually the videoing of it was very quick and easy, and we were so happy with how it turned out. So here we go. The last but definitely not least module that we did in the digital media workshop with Mick was map making. And how we started off this day was great crack actually. We firstly did some blind drawings of a journey, so whether it be our walk to work or a drive from our hometown to Limerick or whatever it was, but a journey that we knew with our eyes closed was the whole idea. So everybody drew something completely different, and the style of drawings and the differences in the line and the detail was just gorgeous to watch, and it was really nice to listen to other people's explanation of their journey. I drew an area that I walk in my hometown, so or I go running there sometimes, and it just is a big loop around my housing estate, say, and it's about 6k in total if I go the long way, or 3k if I go the short way. So I drew that, and then for the next stage, which was even more crack, Mick asked us to think of somewhere that we have loads of stories associated with, somewhere that we maybe used to hide or used to consider our own when we were younger, and just think of all those happy memories. So I chose my back garden, and this wasn't a blind drawing, this was, we could look at it, so it's far more detail. And this is just done with pencil, and then the X's all along the area here and all along here were my hiding spots. So I explained this to the group as what I had drawn, and I found that I said this really authentically. I was kind of bringing back memories as I spoke, and I attempted to retell that story when making a screencast for Google Maps. And I just thought it was a little less natural, so I would make sure if I was doing this with students to record them the first time around as they tell the story the first time, because they might have a little less of a guard up, or it could be the polar opposite, I don't really know. So then we all got a giant sheet of paper and collaboratively drew our areas that we had each drawn. So our little hiding place areas, our little magical areas from our childhood. And we decided to try and place these in the geographically correct area. So this is all of us working together. I stood back to take some photos. You can see Aaron and Kriya and Kieran are all Munster, so they're down the bottom, and Rebecca. And then the further you get up, you have the Midlands and the Cavan ones and the Mayo ones. So we had it drawn in place as much as possible. So just some images here of us all working together. And that was so much fun. You can really see how it would work in a classroom. Everyone was having the crack. We decided to add colour and connect all the areas with the yellow brick road and this, that and the other. So it was really, really good fun. We probably spent a little too long on it than was expected, but it was a really enjoyable experience. And the piece that we produced at the end, which you can see here, turned out really, really well. So we were all chuffed with it, and now we're probably going to fight over who will get to take it home. So this is my little area here. It's just a more animated version of my back garden, drawn with a Sharpie marker and then painted with some watercolours. And that's the River Shannon going up beside it, as I'm from Athlone, so the Shannon passes through my hometown. So what we did next was use Google My Maps to create our own map. I think everyone chose that area that they had drawn as their special area from their childhood. I did anyway, so I've entitled it My World. And this is Little Prince Henry's Magical Garden. So when I was younger, I was quite the tomboy, and as my dad only had his girls, he really did encourage the tomboyness. And my name being Heather, he used to jokingly call me Henry. And as my sister was quite diva-ish and princessy, and I wasn't, there was a running joke of Little Prince Henry. So I took that quite literal sometimes. And as our garden is quite large, although we're really urban and in a semi-detached house in a housing estate, the gardens are quite large, and there's loads of different sections to it. And the more we developed our garden, the kind of older I got and stuff, the more difference there is in it. So I used to kind of call these all different quarters of the land in the kingdom. My dad's shed, him being a carpenter, was the carpenter's quarters. Then there's an area of stone, tarmac, patio, decking, grass, there's flower beds, there's different trees, there's different sheds that I used to hide behind. So these were all different parts of the gardens, and the people's gardens and all the rest of it. And I used to make jokes about the utility room being the maid's quarters, the maid being my mum, so that didn't always go down too well. So each of the symbols over here represent a different section of the garden. Most of those which I talked about when I was explaining my first drawing. So say here we have the nailless, screwless treehouse, and I've written the little narrative in kind of like a storybook, fairy tale type style. And this is when I was 4 and I asked my dad to build us a treehouse, and of course he's like, no problem. And this was the massive sycamore tree that we have in our back garden. You can see it here, as this is from real Google Maps. It's a really huge tree, so it was ideal for having a tree house. My cousin had gotten one a couple of years previous, and he had such a small garden. I was like, if he gets one, I get one. And 4 years later, there was still no tree house, so I took matters into my own hands and grabbed wood and scrap and all the rest of it from Dad's shed and put it up. It was more like a platform than 4 walls and a roof tree house, without the use of glue or nails or screws. And it stood, and it served its purpose. I was able to sit in it. I was able to hide up there for 3 or 4 days until Dad noticed what I'd done, so took it down. And rather than taking it down and redo the whole thing, it just never happened. So as you can see here, that's the tree house with the little house symbol, and then the hammer is for the carpenter's quarters. So this is where Little Prince Henry, the in-house tekton, which is the fancy, I think, Greek word for a carpenter or a craftsman. That's his shed there. And right behind it is where, when they were building Dad's shed, they laid the foundations out really close to the hedging that went around, separated our garden from the next door neighbours, and then the back lane, which the back lane is full of dodgy characters passing through. There's just bags of cans, there'd be syringes, there'd be all sorts of debris and shrapnel left after a Saturday night up in the back lane. So that was all fenced off, and Dad's shed was going up the back to kind of section that off again from us. But I figured that I could squeeze down the side of it and hide it in the back. So between all this hedging and the rocks separated our house and the back lane, and the shed, there was room for me to squeeze through, and I'd be covered in scrubs and scrapes, and my hair being tattered with twigs in my hair and all the rest of it. And I'd still go in there, and there was a stage where I had a purple furry blanket, the material we got in Paris when I was younger, and my mum made me a blanket out of it, and cups and a bottle of fizzy drink left from a party, because we weren't allowed fizzy drinks in the house when we were smaller. So I used to sneak up there, and it was one of my own little places at one stage, but I told my best friend Sarah about it, and the two of us used to hide in there and sit and wrap around the blanket around us and drink the fizzy drinks, thinking we were absolute lawbreakers. It was gas. And we'd come back covered in the scrubs, and your mum and dad knew exactly where we were, but they said nothing. So that's that area here. I've marked that with a little yoga person, because it was one of my little hiding places where I could have my zen. Which this is another one here. And that was more so I was a bit older, and there was kind of ivy connecting two tree trunks together in the back garden, and it just kept getting more and more overgrown, but Mum and Dad never trimmed it down because it was actually quite nice. But I figured I could kind of peer through the ivy, and there was a gap in between the two tree trunks, so I got wood from Dad's shed and planted it in between the two tree trunks on top of some other wood, so it's like a little bench, but I was hidden from anyone passing by the flower bed. I used to find it so funny, people walking up and down the garden, particularly Dad going up to his shed, and I'd be sitting in there, and he wouldn't glance anyway, but he hadn't a clue. And the older I got, I used it for storing things that I shouldn't have, contraband from the house. So I used to sit in there and smoke fags when I was like 14, 15. My 10-pack of Johnny Blue for $3.25, or then store the drink that we had bought from the knackers to go knacker drinking down the back lane after all the efforts Mum and Dad went through to keep us safe from the back lane. That's where we ended up going to be young louts. So that was that hiding place. And then this one here is my number one, because it's that place I go to if I have a reoccurring dream and I end up in the same place, or there's a place that always reoccurs in a dream, or a place where I start a dream from. It's this area. It's so strange, but to this day, at 26 years of age. So this is behind our little wooden shed, which is like the bike shed we call it, because it's just all kind of camping gear and tennis rackets and bikes and this, that and the other. The other shed is the fuel shed, the other shed is Dad's shed. So this is the bike shed. And there's a kind of a mound of gravel and dried mud and stuff at the top of the garden where the compost bin is and swing set. And then that kind of slides down a little hill to the level that this shed is on, because we have steps in the grass part of the garden. So there's just like this little hill. So we used to slide down on our bums behind the wooden shed, the bike shed, and get permanent markers. Mum was a teacher, so she always had permanent markers lying around. And we'd write dirty words or curse words. Like, curse words to us back then were feck and we, like, or my sister was older, so like Clodagh loves and whatever boy she fancied in her class at the time. And still to this day it says Louise loves Rory, because it was the one hiding place now that I openly shared with my friends as well as my sister. It wasn't my escape. And what else do we have here? This last little one here would be the animal graveyard. So we've always had cats as our pets, so there's been many a dead mouse and rat and bird and everything brought to the doorstep, which we'd always bury, me and my sister being the animal lovers that we were. And then there's guinea pigs, mice, I think a caterpillar, goldfish, and my rabbits from when I was younger. So actual pets that we've buried, as well as gifts from past pets. And so yeah, I just wanted to section off the garden with this mark here, because it is my magical little world. And also, just when you go through it, there is images that I've attached to the little bookmark, and these are based from my illustration. So that was a really handy thing to do, and it'd be great to do this with students, that they can have their own artwork up on the internet. You know, make them feel really good, because it's pretty cool technology these days. So I've already devised a scheme to include my students' artwork when they Google their own home address. So it was very inspirational and very educational module doing the digital media with Mick, and I'll definitely utilise all these skills that we've learned and use the software that we downloaded and the apps that we got for our phone, because it's all so straightforward. So yeah, that's my digital media workshop experience, and you're currently looking at my world.